In a galaxy teeming with powerful species vying for supremacy, humans were on the verge of shattering all preconceived notions. They were about to demonstrate that true strength wasn't about brute force or size, but about resilience honed on a perilous home world. Their journey would rewrite the rules of power, astonish alien civilizations, and redefine the meaning of unstoppable. No one could have predicted that the galaxy's fate would rest with someone like Dave Sanders, a Kansas farmer whose wardrobe consisted primarily of flannel shirts and whose pantry was stocked with an endless supply of beef jerky. Yet, here they were, the Council of Galactic Species, assembled in a hastily called emergency session, gripped by unprecedented panic. The subject of their fear, a creature known throughout the galaxy as the Devastator of Worlds, spoken of in hushed, alien tongues. This entity was so formidable that no species had ever managed to subdue it, and many had perished in the attempt. Covered in sharp spikes and infamous for its ruthlessness, the Devastator made even black holes seem like harmless playthings. Amidst this intergalactic crisis, a human had stepped forward, offering assistance. Council representatives from every corner of the galaxy stared in stunned silence as Dave appeared on their holographic screens. This human, one of the notoriously unpredictable Earthlings, was volunteering to tackle the seemingly impossible task of taming the Devastator. Confused glances were exchanged among the council members, their various appendages, tentacles, antennae, and gelatinous frills, twitching with barely suppressed disbelief. Xerx, the council's lead scientist, emitted a worried warble. Are we seriously considering allowing this human to confront the Devastator? He's the only one who volunteered, Grouse, an official resembling a fluffy, neon-green cactus with an excessive number of eyes, muttered in response. He claims to have experience handling dangerous creatures on his home planet. Zark, consulting his notes, added something about coyotes, bulls, and, I quote, a raccoon the size of a Ford truck. However, none of our most skilled individuals could control the Devastator. We've suffered heavy losses among our bravest warriors and researchers. And we expect this Dave to succeed? Sperry, a being resembling an intergalactic jellyfish, questioned, her voice echoing in layers of incredulity. Dave's image reappeared on the screens, interrupting the council's collective anxiety. Leaning forward, thumbs tucked into his belt, he offered a reassuring nod. Look, I don't know anything about your Devastator, but I've handled some tough situations back on Earth. I even wrestled an emu once. If this big guy needs taming, I'm your man. The council chamber buzzed with a mixture of apprehension and fascination. Humans, they knew, had a knack for surviving improbable situations, often attributed to what their top analysts labeled sheer stubbornness. Still, Dave was their only hope. Very well, Dave Sanders, Zark finally announced, resignation evident in his tentacled face. Prepare yourself. You will enter the Devastator containment habitat at dawn. Dave offered a casual salute, chewing thoughtfully on a piece of beef jerky. You got it. Oh, and if it's all right with you, I'd like to bring a cooler with some beer and ribs. Just in case. The council members watched as he disappeared from the screen, leaving them in apprehensive silence. An official leaned towards Zark and murmured, "We're doomed, aren't we?" Zark's tentacles drooped as he replied, "Honestly, I have no idea anymore." Dawn broke over the council's high-security containment facility, bathing the area in an eerie, otherworldly light. Every high-ranking official, scientist, and military officer in the galactic sector was glued to their screens, watching with a mixture of dread and morbid fascination as Dave Sanders casually strolled into the habitat of the universe's most feared creature. From their secure observation decks, alien experts observed, their various appendages twitching with anxiety, as Dave entered, not with weapons or high-tech gadgets, but with a large cooler and a portable grill. Zark, the lead scientist, nervously rubbed his temples with two tentacles, muttering what sounded suspiciously like alien profanity. Is he planning a picnic in there?" he stammered. Grouse, the fluffy, green cactus-like official, adjusted his viewing monitor, zooming in on Dave who was, indeed, setting up his grill with a relaxed demeanor that bordered on reckless. On the other side of the thick blast shield, the Devastator paced restlessly. Its enormous claws scraped against the floor, producing a chilling sound that sent shivers down the spines of every alien observer. The creature, a towering 10 feet of jagged scales and razor-sharp fangs, was an intimidating sight, capable of chewing through starship hulls with ease. Meanwhile, Dave was busy cracking open a can of beer. "Here, Kitty, Kitty," he called out, as if the Devastator were a house cat rather than a galaxy-class predator. He tossed a marinated steak onto the grill, filling the habitat with a savory aroma. The council scientists exchanged horrified glances. Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, clutched her gelatinous appendages, eyes wide with fear. Is he trying to lure it with food? From the shadows, the Devastator emerged, sniffing the air. It cocked its massive, spiked head in what might have been mistaken for curiosity. It took a cautious step forward, sniffing again. The scent of grilling meat seemed to confuse the creature, and it paused, peering at Dave with something other than pure predatory hunger. "See, it's all about respect," Dave explained, nodding at the Devastator. "You don't just rush in yelling and waving your arms around. You show it you've got something to offer." He took a long swig of his beer, oblivious to the gasps of the alien scientists observing from behind the blast shield. Suddenly, the Devastator lunged forward, claws extended. The aliens gasped, bracing themselves for the inevitable carnage. But Dave, ever the unflappable Kansas farmer, simply held up a hand. "Hey! Sit down," he barked, using the same tone he'd likely use on a stubborn cow. The Devastator froze, stunned. It lowered its massive head, blinking in what looked remarkably like confusion. No one had ever dared to yell at it before. "Yeah, that's right, big guy," Dave continued, flipping the steak on the grill. "Come on over, but keep those claws to yourself, you hear?" To everyone's astonishment, the Devastator obeyed. It slunk closer, almost sheepishly. The council members stared, jaws agape, as the galaxy's most feared predator cautiously approached Dave and sat back on its haunches, sniffing the sizzling meat. "Would you look at that?" Grouse muttered, his fur bristling with bewilderment. He's actually got it listening to him." "Unbelievable," Sperry murmured, practically hyperventilating in her gelatinous seat. Is this what humans do? Tame wild beasts with barbecue?" Zark, utterly flabbergasted, could only watch as Dave held up a slice of steak to the creature. "Here you go, buddy. Bet you never had barbecue before, huh?" With an almost hesitant swipe, the Devastator took the steak in its jaws, chewing thoughtfully. It emitted a sound that, if it had come from any other creature, might have been mistaken for a purr. The aliens could scarcely believe their eyes. The Devastator, devourer of worlds, terror of the galaxy, was calmly sitting beside a human, enjoying a cookout. As the savory aroma of grilling meat filled the Devastator's containment habitat, the alien observers watched in stunned silence. Dave, oblivious to their collective anxiety, casually flipped the steak on the portable grill he'd brought in. He hummed a little tune, completely unfazed by the massive, spiked creature that was slowly emerging from the shadows. The Devastator, a towering behemoth of jagged scales and razor-sharp fangs, sniffed the air, its huge head cocked in what might have been interpreted as curiosity. It took a tentative step forward, its eyes fixed on Dave, and then another. The scent of the cooking steak seemed to have a calming effect on the beast, momentarily overriding its usual predatory instincts. "That's right, big fella," Dave encouraged, as if speaking to a nervous farm animal. "Come on over and get a whiff of this." He took another swig of his beer, seemingly unaware of the horrified expressions on the faces of the scientists observing from behind the blast shield. The Devastator, captivated by the unfamiliar scent, continued its cautious approach. Its massive claws scraped against the floor, producing a chilling sound that echoed through the habitat, but its demeanor was surprisingly less hostile than anticipated. It peered at Dave with an almost inquisitive look, as if trying to understand this strange, small creature who wasn't running in terror. "Easy now," Dave said soothingly, holding up a hand. "No need for any roughhousing. Just come on over and see what's cooking." He gestured towards the grill with a casual wave of his hand. The aliens behind the blast shield watched with bated breath, expecting the Devastator to pounce at any second. Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, practically vibrated with fear, her gelatinous form pulsating with each anxious moment. "He's actually trying to reason with it," she whispered in disbelief. With surprising docility, the Devastator continued its approach, finally stopping a few feet from Dave. It sat back on its haunches, its massive head still tilted in curiosity, sniffing the air. "See? It's all about establishing a connection," Dave explained, as if giving a lecture on animal husbandry. "You show them you mean no harm, offer them something they can appreciate." He then held up a perfectly grilled steak, its juices glistening under the habitat lights. "Ever had anything like this before, buddy?" he asked the Devastator, as if offering a treat to a pet dog. The alien scientists exchanged bewildered glances. Zark, the lead scientist, muttered something that sounded suspiciously like an alien curse. "He's offering it food," he stammered. "Is he mad?" The Devastator, seemingly mesmerized by the sizzling steak, reached out a massive claw, its razor-sharp tips glinting in the light. The aliens braced themselves for the worst, expecting Dave to lose a hand or worse. But instead of attacking, the Devastator took the steak gingerly, its jaws closing around it with surprising delicacy. It began to chew, slowly and thoughtfully, emitting a low rumbling sound that, if it had come from any other creature, might have been mistaken for a contented purr. The scientists watching from the observation deck were speechless. The Devastator, the terror of the galaxy, was sitting peacefully beside a human, enjoying a barbecue. Grouse, the fluffy, green cactus-like official, let out a nervous chuckle. "He's actually picnicking with the Devastator," he muttered in disbelief. Dave chuckled, patting the creature's massive, scaly shoulder. "See? You're just a big softy underneath all those spikes," he said, tossing it another piece of steak. "Bet the folks back home wouldn't believe this." The Devastator, now seemingly enjoying its unexpected meal, devoured the steak with gusto. The aliens watching from their observation deck could only stare in stunned amazement. They had expected carnage, a swift and brutal end for the human who dared to enter the Devastator's lair. Instead, they were witnessing something truly extraordinary, the beginning of an unlikely friendship. "Is this normal for humans?" Sperry whispered, her voice trembling. Zark, still clutching his notes with trembling tentacles, could only shake his head in disbelief. "Apparently, for this one, it is," he murmured, completely baffled by the turn of events. As the savory aroma of grilled steak permeated the Devastator's enclosure, the alien council members observed the unfolding scene with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Dave, seemingly unperturbed by the presence of the galaxy's most formidable predator, continued to hum a cheerful tune as he expertly flipped the meat on his portable grill. The Devastator, a towering monstrosity of jagged scales and razor-sharp teeth, gradually emerged from the shadows, its massive head tilted in what appeared to be genuine curiosity. The creature's movements, while still intimidating, seemed less aggressive than expected, its predatory instincts seemingly subdued by the enticing smell of the barbecue. "Come on, big fella," Dave coaxed, his tone reminiscent of a farmer calming a skittish livestock animal. "Don't be shy. Come see what's cooking." He gestured towards the grill with a casual flick of his wrist, seemingly oblivious to the horrified expressions on the faces of the scientists peering from behind the safety of the blast shield. Intrigued by the unfamiliar scent, the Devastator continued its cautious approach, its enormous claws scraping against the floor, producing a chilling sound that resonated throughout the habitat. However, its demeanor remained surprisingly docile, its gaze fixed on Dave with an almost inquisitive look, as if trying to decipher the intentions of this small, unassuming creature who displayed no signs of fear. "Easy does it," Dave said softly, holding up a reassuring hand. "There's no need for any trouble. Just come on over and take a look." He motioned towards the grill again, his movement slow and deliberate. The aliens behind the blast shield watched with bated breath, anticipating a sudden, violent outburst from the Devastator at any moment. Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, trembled with anxiety, her gelatinous form pulsating with each passing second. "He's attempting to communicate with it," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. To the astonishment of everyone present, the Devastator continued to approach, finally halting a short distance from Dave. It lowered its massive body, sitting back on its haunches, its head still tilted in a curious manner, its nostrils flared as it inhaled the tantalizing aroma of the grilling meat. "You see?" It's all about building a rapport, Dave explained, as if delivering a lesson in interspecies communication. You demonstrate that you pose no threat and offer something appealing. He then presented a perfectly cooked steak, its juices glistening under the habitat's artificial lighting. Have you ever tried anything like this before, my friend? He inquired of the Devastator, his tone as casual as if he were offering a treat to a beloved pet. The alien scientists exchanged perplexed glances. Zark, their lead scientist, muttered something that sounded remarkably like an extraterrestrial expletive. He's offering it sustenance, he stammered incredulously. Has he lost his mind? The Devastator, seemingly captivated by the sight of the sizzling steak, extended one of its massive claws, its razor-sharp talons gleaming under the lights. The aliens braced themselves for the worst, envisioning a gruesome outcome for the human who had dared to venture into the Devastator's domain. However, instead of lashing out, the Devastator gently accepted the steak, its jaws closing around it with unexpected delicacy. It began to chew, slowly and deliberately, emitting a low rumbling sound that, if it had emanated from any other creature, might have been interpreted as a contented purr. The scientists observing from their vantage point were rendered speechless. The Devastator, the scourge of the galaxy, was sitting peacefully next to a human, partaking in a barbecue. Grouse, the fluffy, green cactus-like official, let out a nervous chuckle. He's having a picnic with the Devastator, he mumbled in astonishment. Dave, now comfortably settled in with the Devastator, who he'd affectionately nicknamed Biff, had become a galactic sensation. His daily interactions with the formerly feared creature were broadcast across the galaxy, captivating audiences of all species. Some viewed Dave as a legendary hero, others as a dangerously unpredictable wildcard. The Council of Galactic Species, meanwhile, was utterly bewildered, struggling to comprehend the situation and its implications. They convened an emergency session, their grand chamber filled with a palpable sense of uncertainty and reluctant admiration. Zark, visibly exhausted, initiated the meeting with a weary sigh. We must determine how to proceed with this development, he announced, glancing at the holographic displays showing Dave playfully teaching Biff how to give a high five. Grouse, the neon green, cactus-like official, scratched his furry chin. At this juncture, he mused, should we perhaps appoint this human as the Council's official beast tamer? Are you out of your mind? Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, whispered, her voice trembling. If he can accomplish this with the Devastator, who knows what other dangerous creatures he might tame, or worse, befriend? Imagine him arriving with an entourage of our most formidable beasts, trained and obedient. Zark shuddered, picturing Dave casually strolling through Council headquarters with a menagerie of formerly untamable alien creatures, a leash in one hand, a cooler full of snacks in the other. The image was both comical and deeply unsettling. As the Council deliberated, Dave, inside the containment habitat, noticed the activity through the observation window. With Biff dutifully at his side, he approached the glass and knocked cheerfully. You folks look a little stressed. Everything all right, he called out, flashing a friendly grin. Zark, taking a deep breath, approached the window, his expression a mixture of respect and resignation. Dave Sanders, he began, choosing his words cautiously, your achievements are truly extraordinary. The Council is compelled to acknowledge your remarkable abilities. Dave grinned. Or, shucks. You mean you're finally warming up to old Biff, he said, playfully nudging the Devastator. The Council members exchanged uneasy glances as Biff, seemingly aware of his newfound celebrity status, flashed a toothy grin that could have terrified any other being in the galaxy. Well, Zark continued, struggling to articulate his thoughts, we cannot dispute your effectiveness. It would be strategically advantageous to perhaps extend your influence to other Council assignments. He paused, glancing nervously at Biff. Hypothetically, would you consider instructing other humans in your methods? Dave raised an eyebrow, scratching his head. You mean, you want more humans taming your galaxy critters? He chuckled. Well, I reckon some folks back home wouldn't mind the work. But, he shrugged, I can't guarantee they'd all have the knack for it. And I ain't making any promises. After all, there's only one Biff. Biff grunted in agreement as Dave patted his scaly shoulder. Besides, he added, it ain't about being the biggest or the toughest. You just gotta show them a little respect, you know? The council fell silent. For millennia, they had perceived creatures like the Devastator as threats to be neutralized or imprisoned. Yet here was this human, a simple earthling, suggesting that understanding and mutual respect might be more effective than their most advanced weaponry or containment systems. Finally, Zark nodded, acknowledging the undeniable truth. Very well, Dave Sanders. You have demonstrated something we never thought possible. You've tamed the galaxy's most formidable predator and offered us a new perspective. Dave nodded with satisfaction. Glad to be of service, folks. Now, if you'll excuse us, Biff and I have a game of fetch to get back to. You can keep your meetings and whatnot. He tipped an imaginary hat to the council. Just remember, if you ever have a big critter causing trouble, you know where to find me. With that, he gave Biff a gentle tug on the leash, and the two ambled away, leaving the council members staring after them, dazed and humbled. For the first time in its long history, the council was uncertain how to proceed. One thing was clear, they had witnessed the dawn of a new era in intergalactic relations, one led not by advanced technology or military might, but by a man, his grilling skills, and a healthy dose of courage. News of Dave's extraordinary feat spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. The human who had befriended the Devastator, now affectionately known as Biff, became an overnight sensation. Across countless worlds, alien populations tuned into live broadcasts of Dave's daily interactions with the formerly feared creature. Some hailed him as a hero of legendary proportions, a testament to human ingenuity and courage. Others, however, viewed him with a mixture of awe and apprehension, wary of the implications of such an unprecedented accomplishment. The Council of Galactic Species found itself in a similar state of bewilderment, struggling to reconcile their established understanding of intergalactic relations with the reality of a human casually playing fetch with the universe's most dangerous predator. An emergency council session was called, the Grand Chamber buzzing with a palpable sense of uncertainty and grudging admiration. Zark, looking visibly weary from the constant influx of information and speculation, addressed the assembled representatives. We must determine, he announced with a sigh, how best to proceed in light of this unforeseen development. He gestured towards the holographic displays showing Dave patiently teaching Biff the finer points of a high five. Growls, the fluffy, neon-green cactus-like official, stroked his furry chin thoughtfully. Perhaps, he suggested, we should consider formally appointing this human to the position of intergalactic beast tamer? Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, recoiled in horror, her voice trembling with barely suppressed panic. Are you suggesting we give this human free rein to potentially tame any creature he chooses? She exclaimed. If he can accomplish this with the Devastator, imagine the havoc he could wreak if he befriended an entire menagerie of our most formidable beasts. The thought of Dave casually strolling into council headquarters with a leash-trained kraken and a cuddly black hole sent shivers down the spines of several council members. Meanwhile, inside the containment habitat, Dave noticed the flurry of activity in the observation deck. With Biff dutifully at his side, he approached the reinforced glass and knocked playfully. Hey there, folks, he called out, a cheerful grin on his face. Everything all right up there? You all seem a little stressed. Zark, taking a deep breath to compose himself, approached the glass, his expression a complex mixture of respect and apprehension. Dave Sanders, he began, choosing his words carefully, your accomplishments have exceeded all expectations. The council acknowledges your unique abilities. Dave chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Or, shucks, he replied. You mean you're finally coming around to old Biff here? He gave the Devastator a friendly nudge, and Biff, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, responded with a toothy grin that would have terrified any other being in the galaxy. Zark cleared his throat, continuing, we are exploring ways to leverage your talents for the benefit of the council. He glanced nervously at Biff, then back at Dave. Hypothetically speaking, would you be amenable to instructing others in your methods? Dave raised an eyebrow, a thoughtful expression on his face. You mean, like, teaching other folks how to hang out with big critters? He asked. Well, I reckon there are a few folks back home who wouldn't mind the work. But, he added with a shrug, I can't make any guarantees. There's only one Biff, after all. The Devastator grunted in agreement, nudging Dave's shoulder affectionately. Besides, Dave continued, it ain't about being the strongest or the scariest. It's about showing a little respect, you know? The council chamber fell silent. For millennia, they had viewed creatures like the Devastator as threats to be neutralized or imprisoned. Yet, here was this human, this unassuming earthling, suggesting that understanding and mutual respect might be more effective than their most advanced weaponry. Zark finally nodded, a dawning realization spreading across his tentacled face. Very well, Dave Sanders, he conceded. You have demonstrated something truly remarkable. You have shown us a new way. Happy to be of service, Dave replied with a grin. Now, if you'll excuse us, Biff and I have a game of fetch to get back to. You'll keep on with your meeting and whatnot. He tipped an imaginary hat towards the council. Just holler if you need any help with any other critters. With that, he gave Biff a gentle tug on the makeshift leash, and the unlikely duo ambled away, leaving the council members to ponder the implications of this extraordinary turn of events. For the first time in its long history, the Council of Galactic Species was uncertain of how to proceed. One thing, however, was clear: they had witnessed the dawn of a new era in intergalactic relations, one led not by military might or advanced technology, but by a man, his grilling skills, and an uncanny ability to connect with even the most fearsome of creatures. Dave's unlikely success with Biff, the once terrifying Devastator of worlds, quickly transformed him into a galactic celebrity. Alien populations across the cosmos tuned in to watch live streams of Dave's daily interactions with the creature, now more akin to a giant, scaly pet than a universe-ending threat. Some hail Dave as a legendary hero, a symbol of humanity's unexpected strength. Others, though impressed, remained wary, uncertain of the implications of a human wielding such unusual influence over such a powerful being. The Council of Galactic Species, caught in the middle of this intergalactic phenomenon, convened yet another emergency session. The Grand Chamber buzzed with a mixture of bewildered admiration and apprehensive uncertainty. Zark, looking increasingly haggard from the constant stream of unexpected events, addressed the assembled representatives. We must establish, he announced wearily, gesturing towards holographic images of Dave and Biff engaged in a surprisingly gentle game of high five, a clear course of action in light of this extraordinary circumstance. Grouse, the fluffy, neon-green cactus-like official, stroked his furry chin in contemplation. Perhaps, he ventured, we should formally recognize Mr. Sanders's unique talents and appoint him intergalactic liaison for dangerous life forms? Sperry, the jellyfish-like being, shuddered, her translucent form quivering with anxiety. Are we seriously suggesting we grant this human authority over potentially any creature he chooses? She whispered, her voice laced with fear. The image of Dave strolling into council headquarters accompanied by a menagerie of previously untamable beasts, a leash-trained space kraken, a purring black hole, sent shivers down the spines of several council members. Inside the containment habitat, Dave noticed the renewed activity in the observation deck. With Biff dutifully at his side, he ambled over and gave the reinforced glass a friendly knock. Hey there, folks, he called out, a cheerful grin on his face. Everything all right? You all look a little on edge. Zark, taking a deep breath, approached the window, his expression a blend of respect, bewilderment, and a hint of resignation. Dave Sanders, he began, carefully selecting his words, your accomplishments have been remarkable, to say the least. The Council is exploring ways to utilize your unique skills. Dave chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Or, shucks, he replied. You mean you're finally starting to see old Biff here for the gentle giant he is? He gave the Devastator a playful pat on the shoulder, and Biff, seemingly aware of his newfound celebrity status, responded with a toothy grin that would have terrified any other being in the galaxy. Zark cleared his throat, continuing, we are considering extending your influence, so to speak. Would you, hypothetically, be open to sharing your techniques with others? Dave raised an eyebrow, a thoughtful expression on his face. You mean, like, showing other folks how to befriend big, scary critters? He asked. Well, I reckon there might be a few folks back home who'd be interested in giving it a whirl. But, he added with a shrug, I can't make any promises. There's only one Biff, after all. The Devastator grunted in agreement, nuzzling Dave affectionately. Besides, Dave continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone, it ain't about being the toughest or the strongest. It's about understanding, about respect, you know? A hush fell over the council chamber. For eons, they had regarded creatures like the Devastator as threats to be eliminated or contained. Yet here stood a human, a simple earthling, suggesting that empathy and mutual respect might be more effective than their most advanced technology. Zark finally nodded slowly, a dawning realization spreading across his tentacled face. Very well, Dave Sanders, he conceded. You've shown us a new path. Happy to help, Dave replied with a grin. Now, if you don't mind, Biff and I have a game of fetch to finish up. You'll carry on with your meeting. He tipped an imaginary hat to the council members. Just holler if you ever need a hand with any other critters. With that, he gave Biff a gentle tug on the makeshift leash and the unlikely duo ambled off, leaving the council to grapple with the implications of this extraordinary turn of events. The Council of Galactic Species, for the first time in its long and illustrious history, was unsure of how to proceed. One thing, however, was abundantly clear: they had witnessed the beginning of a new era in intergalactic relations, an era ushered in not by advanced weaponry or complex diplomacy, but by a man, his barbecue, and an uncanny knack for connecting with even the most fearsome creatures in the galaxy. The galaxy, it seemed, had much to learn from a simple Kansas farmer.